Hello everyone, welcome back. So now let's understand GST returns. Now when we understand GST returns, the main aim is to understand the flow of the transactions and how the transaction process works, understanding various types of returns. Then we will go by each section. Now first, say suppose my friend Mr. A is making outward supplies. Now all these outward supplies are to be reported in a form called as GSTR1, and the due date for this form is 11th of next month. Thereafter, for his inward supply, he is not required to file any return. There's a form GSTR2B which gets auto generated, and this is generated on 14th, and we view and compare with our books. In the meantime, there might also be a case that he has a ISD registration. Now this ISD will file a return called as GSTR6. The due date for GSTR6 is 13th of the next month. Thereafter, it is also possible that he supplies through e-commerce operator, and he also has government contracts. So when he is making a supply to government, where government is the recipient, then the government department will be required to file GSTR 7, and the due date for government department is 10th. If he is supplying online, there will be a e-commerce operator who will file a return. The e-commerce operator will file a return called as GSTR 8, and the due date is 10th. Now these two get reflected in e-cash ledger of the supplier. Obviously, this happens only after validation. Now, after so much, there is one more compliance, GSTR 9, which is an annual return, and the due date for annual return is 31st December after the financial year. In case of closure of business, GSTR 10, which is a final return, needs to be filed, and the due date for final return is 3 months from the date of cancellation or 3 months from date of order of cancellation, whichever is later. So you get more time. What about composition dealer, sir? Composition dealer files GSTR 4, and this is to be filed once in a year, and the due date for composition dealer is 30th June after the financial year. What about payment of tax? Payment of tax is done through CMP 08 quarterly basis. Due date is 18th of the next month. Then you have GSTR 5. GSTR 5 is filed by NRTP, and the due date is 13th of the next month or 7 days from last day of valid registration, whichever is earlier. And then there is a return called as 5A, which is to be filed by OIDAR, and this is OIDAR who is outside India providing services to India, 20th of next month. Same return is also required to be filed by online money gaming, which we will discuss separately, because online money gaming provisions we have not discussed together with all these. Now if you see, can you see 1? Yes, there is GSTR 1. Can you see 2? Yeah, something related to 2. What is the main return out of all this? The main return is now to come, and that main return is called as GSTR 3B. And the due date for GSTR 3B is 20th of the next month. So by 20th of the next month, you are required to file GSTR 3B. So in your GSTR 3B, you report all the transactions of output tax, ITC, tax payable under RCM, and tax payment. Then you have GSTR 4, which is filed by a composition dealer, 5 NRTP, 5A YDR, 6 ISD, 7 government, 8 eco, 9 annual return, 10 final return. There is also GSTR 11, which is filed by UIN holders, but that is to claim refund of tax paid on purchases. Whatever is the tax paid on purchases, they can claim a refund using GSTR 11. So this is how the structure works. Now, parallel to this, there is a scheme available. See, the number of returns in this was very high. So what did the industry request? Industry requested that can you provide some easy alternatives instead of filing so many returns, because these are too many returns. So government said, if your aggregate turnover is more than 5 crore in preceding financial year, then in that case no option. GSTR 1 will be filed on a monthly basis and the due date will be 11th. GSTR 3B will also be filed on a monthly basis and the due date will be 20th, and tax payment is also to be done on a monthly basis and the due date will be 20th. So everything on monthly basis. But for a person whose aggregate turnover in preceding financial year does not exceed 5 crores, then he has two options. Option 1 is to follow monthly filing, and option 2 is to go for a scheme called as QRMP. As the name suggests, QRMP, quarterly return, monthly payment. Now you'll file the returns quarterly but pay the taxes monthly. So GSTR 1, you'll file it on a quarterly basis. Due date is 13th after each month after the relevant quarter. GSTR 3B will also be filed on a quarterly basis. The due date is 22nd/24th. For few states it is 22nd, for few states it is 24th. Then once you file this, what about payment? That's the main thing, na? For government, what's the most essential thing? Payment of tax. So payment of tax, government has said you have to pay taxes on a monthly basis. Now what will you do for first 2 months of a quarter? Because first 2 months of a quarter, how will you pay it? Because you are not filing any return. So government said just deposit in e-cash ledger. Now the question arises, how much should you deposit in e-cash ledger? Government provided two methods. Option A, you can deposit self-assessed tax. Self-assessed meaning calculate your output, calculate your ITC and deposit the balance amount. But then people said, government, if I have to do this calculation, why will I do QRMP? Instead of that, I will do monthly filing only now. Then option B is fixed sum. And how much is this fixed sum, sir? For month 1 and month 2, it is 35% of tax paid in previous quarter. But sir, what if last time I have not filed quarterly return? Then it is 100% of tax paid in previous month. So last time, if you are a monthly filer, then 100% of tax paid in previous month. Last time, if you were a quarterly filer, 35% of tax paid in previous quarter. Now, the due date for these two is 25th of the next month. Let's quickly see one example. Say suppose April, May, June. Output 10 rupees, ITC 6 rupees. How much will I pay under self-assessed? 4. How much will I pay under fixed sum? Fixed sum depends on my previous quarter, Jan to March. If I have paid 10 rupees in previous quarter, Jan to March, then 10 into 35% will be 3.5. And 10, 5, self-assessed will be 5. Second month also it will be 3.5 because 35% of tax paid in previous quarter. Then 10, 7, 3. So how much will be this one? At the end of the quarter, everything has to match. So 4 plus 5 plus 3, 12. You have already deposited 7. Now you will deposit 5. At the end, it will remain same. April, what is the due date? Due date will be 25th May. May, what will be the due date? 25th June. July, for June, 22nd/24 July. This will be the due date for paying these taxes. Correct? Okay. Now, say suppose I pay this much. No interest. But if the liability is 4, but I pay 3 under self-assessed, whether interest will apply? Obviously yes, on that 1 rupee. Fixed sum, if I pay 3.5 and 3.5, no interest will apply even if there is a shortfall compared to actual amount. So see, the liability is 4, but I end up paying 3.5. No problem at all. Still interest will not be applicable because the law allows me to pay on fixed sum basis. Plus, if I keep money in e-cash ledger, that is also sufficient. In fact, the moment I deposit money in e-cash ledger, interest will stop. Is it, sir? Yeah. If money is there in e-cash ledger, even if I delay filing GST return, interest will not be applicable for the money which is already lying in e-cash ledger. Okay. Then, this QRMP, I can take it based on preceding financial year turnover. But up to what in current year? In current year, I can take it up to 5 crore in current year. Now the quarter in which 5 crore is touched, next quarter onwards, I should go for monthly filing. Now there are some important points. First point. Can I shift between option 1 and option 2? That is monthly filing and quarterly filing. The answer is yes, it is allowed quarter wise. Now between what dates? Between first day of second month of previous quarter and last day of first month of current quarter. Remember the wordings, huh? First day of second month of previous quarter and last day of first month of current quarter. So if I were to shift for April to June, then I have to do it between first day of second month of previous quarter. Previous quarter is April, Jan to March. First day of second month of previous quarter and last day of first month of current quarter, 30th April, because I have to decide by end of April. If I were to shift for April to June, I have to decide by end of April, because thereafter due dates will start April and then go back 3 months. 30th April, March, Feb. That's how you get 1st Feb, because all this has to be done quarter wise. Okay. Now, is there a facility to furnish B2B invoices for first 2 months on a monthly basis so that recipient can avail ITC? The answer is yes. There is IFF, invoice furnishing facility. For first 2 months, B2B invoices can be reported in invoice furnishing facility so that the recipient can avail timely ITC. But anyways, this is optional, and only B2B invoices, debit note, credit note can be given, plus there is a limit of 50 lakh in each month. What's the due date, sir? 13th after each month is the due date. Okay, then can I choose this GST invoice? Like Bangalore branch monthly filing, Mumbai branch quarterly filing allowed. So Bangalore branch can do monthly filing, Mumbai branch can do quarterly filing, no problem at all. And what about balance? Say suppose there is some balance in e-cash ledger. You deposited 35%, but thereafter there was no sale. So if there is some balance in e-cash ledger, what about that balance? Can that balance be used for any other purpose? Yes, it can be used for any other purpose after filing GSTR 3B for the relevant quarter. Once you file GSTR 3B for the relevant quarter, thereafter you can easily transfer that balance which is lying in e-cash ledger. Now, you need to be very careful on all these points. You can get a question on all these in your examination. Thereafter, coming to section 37. Section 37, which deals with details of outward supply. Now see, section 37 covers GSTR 1. It covers IFF. One more form is included. I will talk about it in a while. Now, GSTR 1, IFF. Say suppose June 2024. The due date for GSTR 1 was 11th July 24 and I filed it. Now there was some mistake. Can I rectify? Yes, I can rectify that mistake in the month's return in which I get to know the error. So if I get to know in July, then July return which I will file on 11th August, based on that I can rectify the information. But there used to be one problem. See, my June 3B due date when I have to pay the taxes is 20th July. Now can I do something before this? They added a form called as GSTR 1A. What is the use of GSTR 1A? GSTR 1A can be filed after GSTR 1 filing and before GSTR 3B filing. I can file 1A to rectify anything where a mistake has been made in this June GSTR 1. If there is some mistake in this June GSTR 1, then it can be rectified by filing GSTR 1A so that the effect of that comes in GSTR 3B and net amount is correct. This is one option which is available with me. But there are implications of GSTR 1A. First, if you file it after the due date, then Your recipient will get communication only in his next month's GSTR 2B and not immediately, because 2B gets generated on 14th. Whoever files GSTR 1 up to due date, that information will come in 2B. Whoever files after those due dates, that information will come in next month's 2B. So that is one disadvantage which is even today there. Otherwise everything flows seamlessly in this. And 1A has been really a game changer, because instead of amending that information in future GST returns, you can amend it before filing your GSTR 3B. Say suppose you missed out reporting one credit note here, then the tax liability is more in 3B. Now as the tax liability is more in 3B, you are not willing to pay that. Now if you change your 3B, there is a mismatch between 1 and 3B, you will get a notice. And that's why this has been very helpful. That is GSTR 1A. Then, is nil return required to be filed? Yes. If there are no supplies, then nil return is required to be filed. That's also mandatory. Can you file it before the end of the tax period? No. Before tax period, no. But there are two exceptions. What are the two exceptions? 1. Casual taxable person. So before tax period, can you file it? No. But there are two exceptions. 1. Casual taxable person, because after he has ended his registration of 5 days, he can file GSTR 1. And second exception is cancellation of registration. Then, if you have not filed previous GSTR 1, if you have not filed previous GSTR 1, then you cannot file current GSTR 1. So first case is previous tax period GSTR 1. Then say suppose you have not filed previous GSTR 3B, then also you cannot file GSTR 1 of current period. That means if you don't file May GSTR 1, you cannot file June GSTR 1. If you don't file May 3B, you cannot file June GSTR 1. If you violate two rules, that is you have not replied nor paid the tax under rule 88C and 88D, then again you will not be able to file GSTR 1. If you don't give the bank details on time as per rule 10A, that is within 30 days from grant of registration or before filing GSTR 1, whichever is earlier, then again you will not be able to file next subsequent period GSTR 1. What is 88C and 88D? 88C says if there is a mismatch between 1 and 3B, that is 1 is more and 3B is less. That means in 1 you are reporting correct sale numbers and correct tax. 3B, when it comes to payment of tax, you are paying lower. Then in that case, government will send a notice, and that notice is DRC 1B. Once that notice is sent, you have two options. 1. Reply. 2. Pay the tax. If you don't reply or pay the tax, then you will not be able to file subsequent month GSTR 1. And if the reply is unsatisfactory, he might initiate recovery proceedings. Who might initiate? Officer might initiate recovery proceedings. 88D talks about mismatch between 2B and 3B. Now what is this 2B and 3B, sir? 2B and 3B, where 2B has ITC of 10 rupees. 3B, you have availed ITC of 100. Again, it's a fraud case. DRC 1C, notice will be issued. Either you can reply or pay the difference tax. If you don't, then here direct recovery, section 79 recovery, and here notice will be issued under section 73 or 74. Notice will be applicable, and then notice proceedings will be taken over after that. So this is some key points. Now when it comes to reporting, B2B you have to report everything separately, whether it is inter or intra. You have to give separate information of each transaction, invoice wise information. But when it comes to B2C, you can consolidate it, but if it is inter more than 1 lakh, then you have to give invoice wise information up to 1 lakh. You have to give state wise and rate wise consolidated. And if it is intra, doesn't matter, more than 1 lakh, you can give consolidated. But you have to give rate wise, because for each rate separate reporting has to be done. So these are the points related to section 37. Be careful of 1A. You can get a question on 1A, but I think what they will try to confuse you with is, they will give you that 1A is filed on 17th. Can the recipient avail ITC? The answer is no. Then next 2B, when it gets generated, then he will get ITC. So be very careful of this, because 1A will affect your 3B, but 1A will not get communicated immediately to the recipient in his GSTR 2B, because 2B will get updated next month. 2B gets generated on 14. So be careful. Two questions can be asked on 1A, either your liability in 3B or recipient, whether he will get immediate ITC or his ITC will get delayed. That can be asked. Now, is 1A mandatory? The answer is no. It is also optional. If you want to amend anything, you can use it. Otherwise, 1A does not have a due date. 1A does not have any timeline per se. It is only that it can be filed after filing GSTR 1 and before filing GSTR 3B. There is an option available. Okay. Then, coming to section 38. What is section 38, sir? Communication of details of inward supply. Communication of details of inward supply. So your inward supply will get communicated to you. Now there are two forms. 2A is a static form. Static form meaning, 2A is a dynamic form. Dynamic form meaning it keeps changing, while 2B is a static form. Static form, it gets generated. Once it gets generated, it remains constant. Like April 2B will be generated on 14th May. May 2B will get generated on 14th June. And quarterly 2B is also available. April to June 2B will get generated on 14 July. Monthly one is useful for monthly filers. Quarterly one is useful for quarterly filers. Then the moment 2B gets generated on 14th, it freezes. Thereafter, it will not undergo any changes. Now, 2B has two parts. ITC, which may be available, and out of this you have to check whether you have the invoice, whether you have received the goods or services, and see how much of ITC you can avail. Second one is ITC shall not be available. Now at present only one thing is coming in, ITC shall not be available, and that is C plus S of other state. Say suppose I am in Karnataka and I go to Goa and book a hotel for business purpose. Then in that case, the hotel will charge me C plus S. Whether I will get ITC? No, C plus S of Goa is not eligible for ITC here. But sir, why under section 38 is there a restriction? Now, see, you learned conditions to avail ITC. You have the invoice, you have received the goods or services, subject to section 41, supplier has paid the tax, you have filed a valid return, supplier has filed one and it is communicated in 2B, and last one was ITC is not restricted under section 38. The moment it is restricted under section 38, no ITC. No ITC. Yeah, government is planning lot of other things in this. Like if there is a supplier who is evading tax, then recipient will get that particular invoice in his not available, and if he gets it in his not available, he will not get ITC. But all these points are even now not activated. Like if my supplier does a mistake of his GSTR 1 and 3B mismatch, then his invoice will come in not available. If supplier claims more in GSTR 2B, then that also can come. Newly registered suppliers, that is also one point. Supplier has failed to follow rule 86B. What is 86B? 1% to be paid through e-cash ledger, he has not done. Or supplier has not paid the taxes for such period as may be prescribed, or any other point which may be notified later. So at present nothing is notified, but there might be other cases which might be notified. So if my supplier does wrong, then his invoice will come in GSTR to be in not available, and I will not get ITC. At present it is not activated, so you can only get a theory question. Other than that, you cannot get anything in this. Then section 39. Now section 39 talks about GSTR 3B. You are very well aware of the due dates. For monthly it is 20th, for quarterly it is 22nd/24th. GSTR 4, 30th June. GSTR 5, 13th of next month or 7 days from valid registration, whichever is earlier. NRTP 5A also comes from here, 6 also comes from here, ISD 7 TDS also comes from here, 8 does not come from here, 8 comes from TCS provisions itself. Now is there a last date to rectify all this? Same as section 37, 30th November after the financial year, or date of filing annual return, whichever is earlier. But if something is found based on scrutiny, audit, assessment, or enforcement activities by department, then that cannot be rectified. That's anyways there. Section 40 is first return. First return is the first GST return which you file after getting registration. We are talking about first return under section 39, because 39 basically deals with return. Wherever the law uses return, it is actually talking about section 39 returns and no other return. So first return will report all the information from the liable date till grant date. All the information from liable date till grant date of outward supplies needs to be reported in the first return. That's the speciality of first return. Section 41 talks about ITC. ITC is self-assessed. Whatever I self-assess, I can avail as ITC. But if my supplier has not filed GSTR 3B for a tax period by 30th September after the financial year, then in that case recipient has to reverse ITC by 30th November. If he reverses by 30th November after financial year, then interest will not apply. If he reverses after 30th November, interest will start applying at 18% per annum. Plus, be very careful on one very important aspect. If after I do the reversal, after that if my supplier files that tax period return, then in that case I can re-avail ITC, and as you recall, there is no time limit to re-avail ITC. The time limit only applies to availing ITC. Then section 44 deals with annual return. Annual return basically GSTR 9. 9C reconciliation statement has to be filed. You know, reconciliation statement is self-certified, comparing the audited financial statements and annual return. 9C is required only when the turnover of that financial year exceeds 5 crore. 9 and 9C go hand in hand. 9A is for composition dealer, but at present it is not applicable because up to 2 crore normally government gives a relief. No need to file 99A. 9B is for e-commerce operators, TCS, that also not there in real life. Due date is 31st December. Then you have section 45 which deals with final return. Final return, once the registration is cancelled, you have to file a final return to report all the stock, etc. And the due date is 3 months from the date of cancellation or 3 months from date of order of cancellation, whichever is later. Section 46 deals with a notice that if a person has not filed return, then a notice will be sent to him requesting him to file the return within 15 days. If he still does not do it, then in that case, best judgment assessment, which we will see in assessment. This is applicable only for section 39, 44 and 45, not for GSTR1. If you don't file GSTR1, no problem at all. Section 47 deals with late fee. What's the late fee? Late fee, let's see the late fee. Now, late fee for any return other than annual return. Any return other than annual return, but it includes GSTR1, every return is included. 100 rupees per day or 5,000, whichever is lower, and this is CGST. Same is also there in SGST. What about annual return, sir? Annual return, the law has mentioned 100 rupees per day or 0.25% of turnover in a state, whichever is lower. Now, the industry was not happy with this, saying that this is very high. How can you keep it so high? Because 100 rupees per day CGST, 100 rupees per day SGST, 5,000, this is too much. So the industry requested that government please give some relief. Did government give some relief? Yes, it is called as rationalization. Rationalization, government gave some relief. And let's first see the relief which is available to GSTR 1 and 3B. For GSTR 1 and 3B, whenever it is a nil return, for nil return, the late fee will be 10 rupees per day or 250, whichever is lower. And this is all CGST. You will have to double it for C plus S. IGST, there is no late fee, don't forget this. Then, if your preceding financial year aggregate turnover was up to 1.5 crore, then in that case, 25 rupees per day or 1000, whichever is lower. What about PFY turnover? More than 1.5 crore but up to 5 crore, then in that case, 25 rupees per day or 2500, again the law says whichever is lower. And then we have more than 5 crore. If PFY turnover was more than 5 crore, then again it is 25 rupees per day or 5,000 rupees, whichever is lower. Now, A and B is also applicable for GSTR 4 because C and D cannot apply. This is also applicable for GSTR 7. GSTR 7. Now see which are the returns which don't get a relief, because that can be asked in your exam. No relief for 5. 5A does not have any relief. 6 does not have any relief. 8 does not have any relief. So these 4, and you have 10 also. These 5, there is no relief available because the relief is only for 1, 3B. So 2B gets auto generated, people. There cannot be a late fee for GST portal. Okay, then annual return. Annual return, has government provided some relief? Yes. If the aggregate turnover is up to 5 crore, then they have said 25 rupees per day or 0.02% of turnover in a state, whichever is lower. more than 5 crore up to 20 crores, 25 rupees per day is replaced by 50 rupees, and then this remains same, 0.02% of turnover remains same. So the only difference between up to 5 crore and more than 5 crore is 25 rupees, and more than 20 crores no relief. No relief meaning, sir? No relief meaning the same thing will apply, that is 100 rupees per day or 0.25% of turnover. So this is how the late fee looks as of now. You writing it will be helpful for you when you are sitting and studying next time. Then you have section 48. Section 48. What is section 48, sir? Section 48 deals with GST practitioner. Now GST practitioner gets a separate username and password on the GST portal. To become a GST practitioner, you have to satisfy conditions in A and B. A, you have to be a person who is an Indian citizen, sound mind, not insolvent, and not convicted. These are the 4 key points where all 4 are to be satisfied: Indian citizen, sound mind, not insolvent, and not convicted. B, you have to satisfy one of those because there is or, and there are 3 points. First one, retired commercial tax officer with 2 years or more of experience. A retired commercial tax officer, at least group B gazetted officer, or sales tax practitioner, or tax return preparer with 5 years or more experience, or he's a graduate, postgraduate in banking law, degree, commerce, or has passed CA, CS, CMA final exam. And who will be the primary responsible person if there is a mistake? If there is a mistake, the responsibility is always on the client. Plus, say suppose, what work does he do? He does the GST return filings, he issues notices, all the work which is generally done by any other person for the taxpayer, including reply to notices. Then, can you surrender the license? Yes. And lastly, you have to pass an exam which is conducted by NACIN, National Academy for Customs, Indirect Tax and Narcotics. Once that is done, the person becomes a GST practitioner. Clear? Okay, let's quickly have a look at what all we have studied. We have seen a lot of things. First, we saw the return process: 1 11th, 2B 14th, 3B 20th, GSTR 4 30th June, 5 13th, NRTP 6 13th, and 5 is 13th of next month or 7 days from last day of valid registration, whichever is earlier. 7 10th, 8th, 10th, 9th, 31st December final return. 3 months from date of cancellation or 3 months from the order of cancellation, whichever is later. So you get good time limit. Then we moved on to QRMP. Up to 5 crore in current year you can claim it if your preceding financial year turnover does not exceed 5 crore. GSTR 1 13th, GSTR 3B 22nd/24th. Payment first 2 months you will deposit in eCash ledger and you have to do it by 25th. How much will you pay? Self-assessed or fixed sum? Fixed sum is 35% of tax paid in previous quarter or 100% of tax paid in previous month. Then can you shift between option 1 and option 2? Yes, between first day of second month of previous quarter and last day of first month of current quarter. B2B invoices, can you furnish it? Yes, using IFF. GSTIN wise, can you choose option 1 and option 2? Allowed. Balance in e-credit cash, can you use it? Yes, after filing 3B for that particular tax period. GSTR1, IFF, there's one new form 1A to amend something before filing your GSTR 3B. Some cases you will not be allowed to file GSTR 1 if you have not filed previous GSTR 1, previous GSTR 3B. Rule 88C, you did not reply or did not pay the tax. Rule 88D, you did not reply or did not pay the tax, or bank details not given within time. Then 1 lakh up to 1 lakh supplies interstate, consolidate. More than 1 lakh, separate reporting needs to be done. Section 38 2B, basically it gets communicated to you and you will have to then take ITC of what is available to you. 39 deals with various returns. 40 first return. 41 ITC is self-assessed, but if your supplier has not filed the return for a tax period, that is 3B, then by 30th September after the financial year, if he has still not filed, then you have to reverse the ITC by 30th November because it is deemed that he has not paid the tax. 44 annual return. 45 final return. Notice 15 days time is given to file the return. Late fee, we saw various late fees with rationalization, be careful. And lastly, GST practitioner who satisfies these conditions becomes a GST practitioner. Clear? Okay. See you in the next video.